All right, class, we're going to go through the notes and review of the chapter because you have a test coming up on Wednesday. So let's go back and look at everything that we've talked about in this chapter quickly and make sure that you have an understanding of what this chapter is about. It started out with place value and what the decimal point means and where it goes, and then the places on each side of the decimal point. Okay? Specifically focusing on the right side. Tenths place, hundredths place, thousandths place, 10,000ths place. And when you're reading a decimal, you read the first numbers, then you say "and" for the decimal point, and then read the digits of the places of the numbers behind the decimal point. So 328, and then say the place of the last digit, 10,000ths place. Okay? Don't forget hyphens when you're writing a two-digit number that's above 20. Okay? Then, in lesson, we talked about expanded form a little bit by writing this number 505,000ths as 5/10 plus 5,000ths. And then we also put numbers in on the number line and talked about how numbers, there's an infinite number of numbers between these numbers along the decimal point. Because you can just add zeros and then find those numbers. Add the zeros to the end. For example, between 3.4 and 3.5, you could add zeros and make it 3 and 40 hundredths and 3 and 50 hundredths. And then find, oh, 3 and 43 hundredths is between that. And so on and so on. Then in lesson 2, we talked about estimating. And it's most important to remember our goals when estimating. To be able to do the math mentally, but yet get a close answer. Get as close as possible. Do it quickly though, but do it, estimate, and get a close answer. Okay? So, two-digit front-end estimation, that'd be adding or subtracting two digits, plus or minus one digit. Or clustering is a good skill, and that is rounding numbers to the same number and then multiplying. And then for division, you have to remember to use compatible numbers. Numbers that fit together without a remainder. Okay? So, then we went on to adding and subtracting numbers with decimal points. And what do we have to remember to do when we're doing this? Line up the what? Line up the decimal points and line up the places. Okay, so the tenths place are all lined up. The hundredths place are all lined up. You may have to put some zeros in on the ends of the numbers in order to be able to add or subtract. Okay? No.
Is it just adding and subtracting you have to line up the decimals for?
Yes. Yep. For adding and subtracting, you have to line up the places. The places. You have to add tens and ones together, or ones together, tens together, tenths together, hundredths together. Okay? And then for subtraction, if you don't have any hundredths, you have to put a zero there if you need to subtract some hundredths away. So, we talked about that. Then we went on to multiplication. And multiplying numbers with decimals. And we said, you multiply the numbers just like you learned how to do that before. 2 or 3 digits. Multiply each digit separately. Add the numbers together. Make sure you line up those numbers so you add carefully. And write the answer, and then go back and count the number of places behind the decimal point in the entire problem. And then start at the right and move the decimal point in that number of places. This number has 3 places to the right of the decimal point. This number has 0, so we move it 3 places into the answer. If both numbers have them, then there'll be two numbers. Okay, this one, both 3.1 and 9.1 have a place behind the decimal point, so we had to move it 2 places into the answer. Okay, and then, whoops, going back to 2.5, looking for patterns and how to organize information. This, you're going to be tested on being able to organize your guesses. And you're going to have to do some guess and check questions for the test, where you figure out if this is the right guess or if you need to adjust your guess a little bit. Then we went on to dividing. And we said you have to divide by a whole number when dividing. So the divisor has to be a whole number. If it's already a whole number, then you can write the first number in the box, move the decimal point above the line, and then divide it out. Right? But if it's not a whole number, then you have to make it a whole number by moving the decimal point to the right out of the number. And then whatever the number of places you move it out of the divisor, you have to move the same number of places in the dividend, the first number. Okay? So you rewrite the problem after you've made the divisor a whole number, and then divide it out. And then our last lesson, okay, is on exact answers. Okay? So use that information to study for your Chapter 2 test.